4020.
I don't think it is a two-horse race. I think it's disingenuous to at least one and possibly two other teams to keep calling it a two-horse race.
It's the third horse Leeds.
One of the
Is
three.
it them Rhinos?
Yeah. Well,
it should be, because they beat Warrington 36-12 on Saturday. Did you stay on the pitch? Did you dance to Pat
we
Sharp?
partied on the pitch. Yeah. No, we walked around the outside of the pitch. There was partying going.
Sharp, yeah.
That actually was a really good initiative. I mean, the weather was great, but there were loads of kids on the. It's just lovely to see things after the game to keep people involved. There were some kids running up and down playing rugby on the pitch, which is great. Bought their own little ball and were having their own games, which is lovely. Because I can remember when I was once a kid, in the summer when we used to play in the winter. In the summer they'd open Headingley, go down with a gang of mates with a ball and play on the pitch where your heroes played. It was wonderful.
Who were you?
No, that's not fair. That's not fair. Because if I say that, the only thing missing was talent, dedication, physical presence. So no, I wasn't anybody. I was Alex Murphy. But the whole thing was that it was an event that I think he was only on for 45 minutes.
Right.
But it was great because he played the tunes that a lot of people wanted to hear. The adults were dancing on the pitch. The players, as they were coming out of the dressing room, were standing behind him where he was doing his set and getting involved. It was just a really good event, and wouldn't have been the same if it had been pouring with rain. It just worked because A, their team had won, and won very convincingly and well, and B, the weather was perfect, and beer was being sold.
Are they relaying the picture or anything, or is he just...
No,
because
the women played the following day.
That's what I thought, but
no,
because usually grounds people don't like that kind of thing.
Hats off
but obviously
to the ground staff, yeah. But that wasn't what we were there
No, Warrington having lost at Wembley, a heartbreak, blah, 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 blah. Tight first half.
To their absolute credit, I thought Warrington's defence in the first half was exceptional. And spoke a lot about that Wembley heartbreak, that they were prepared to put their bodies on the line, as we're obliged to say. So many times in the first half to ensure they were only 8-0 down, but it had clearly taken a lot out of them. And the rugby Leeds played in the second half was the bit that's been missing so far. So they've now won 5 in a row, 6 out of 7. But they've won a lot of those games on being extremely dogged on defence. And some people were saying, can they do it on attack? And the second half they were.
And now they have.
They were excellent. They were really good.
They were really. It was really fun to watch. Really fun game to watch because Leeds were playing really nice rugby. And
at the heart of it is Jake Connor, which is an astonishing story this season.
And Ryan Hall was rubbish, wasn't he? He dropped the ball twice. Did
you see his tweet?
No. I saw the South Stand cheer when he took
his tweet after the game was fantastic and sums him up. He said, as usual, after every game, I've been to see the physio, and he has confirmed that my hands were stitched on backwards.
But it's okay to say that about him because he'll take it the right way.
But again, there were so many good performers that, and I know Warrington fans to turn it up. There was a reserves game beforehand, and I think Warrington were top of the league. Leeds were second.
I don't pay any attention to the reserves.
And I know Leeds had quite a few first team players in, but they also had 8 under 18s, and again the result was very similar. So Leeds have got a lot of competition for places in virtually every position at the moment. That's why it's not a 2-horse race at the moment. We may be sitting here after Leeds have gone to St Helens on Friday saying it's a 2-horse race.
That Leeds Saints grand final's back on, everybody.
But they've got Saints and they've got Lee coming up, which again are the other team that I just don't think you can say it's a 2-horse race. And Leeds have to go to Hull KR. So you're going to know a lot more about whether this Leeds team are credible in the next 3 or 4 weeks. But the way they played on Saturday, the attacking flair that they showed.
They haven't won 5 in a row against Salford every week, have they? That's the thing. So
no.
They played some decent teams.
They've beaten Wigan. Whisper it quietly, but that is one of the teams they've beaten.
So it was. I don't know. I don't know where Warrington go because the everyone blamed Darryl Powell a couple of years ago. Darryl Powell.
This is the really interesting one.
And Darryl Powell gets sacked. Sam Burgess comes in, are they any better off than they were under Del Powell?
They're-
A couple of places.
They're really unfortunate in terms of injuries. I felt
Oh, of course.
terribly sorry for Aaron Lindop, who clearly was trying his hardest, wanted the ball, wanted to atone for whatever may have happened the week before, which very little of which you can lay at his door, and then does an ACL. So the injuries they are one of those teams at the moment that just has a never-ending run of injuries, and that does affect the continuity.
Like St Helens.
But I don't know where Warrington are at the moment.
Like Wakefield.
I don't know what's left of this season for Warrington, because I genuinely can't see them. Well, I can't see them being at Old Trafford. I think there's a little bit of a breakaway now. I think we know we don't know for certain. We've an idea of 4 of the 6.
Yeah.
Because you look at how many games they've got left and who they've got to play, and you'd think that those 4 teams are going to accrue enough points to be in the top 6. So we're talking about teams playing for 2 other top 6 slots, perhaps. That might be going too early, but I don't think that there's a bit of a gap now. So I don't think that's unreasonable, and I just don't know if Warrington can bridge that gap. And if they can't, and if Sam isn't going to be here next year, and he hasn't said that, he's merely said, I had an interview with Perth, and it may be it may be that Perth approached him and he didn't approach Perth. It doesn't matter how it was done. The indications are that he will be pursuing his coaching career elsewhere. What do you do about that if you're Warrington?
You make plans now for who you're going to bring in.
But do you make the change now?
If the person who...
And again,
if Trent Robinson was available, you'd say yes.
Well, there is somebody available though, isn't there, who wasn't available 3 weeks ago. And I'm not saying that person is the fit that Warrington might be looking for, but do you wait around until the inevitable happens, do you hasten the inevitable because the club needs to start?
So are we saying that Warrington need to appoint Steve McNamara before Leeds do?
Not necessarily before Leeds do.
But that might be what people would.
But I'm not. I wouldn't be. You know, we never want a coach to be sacked. No. There's 2 things that we stand by on this programme. One is it's never a referee's fault, because yes, they'll make mistakes, but there's so much wrong with the way referees are treated at the moment that if we focus solely on them, then you're missing the point. Referees have always made mistakes. They're not making any more or any less than in previous eras. They're working under far more restrictive conditions in that every game is televised to the nth degree. If you genuinely think that referees are biased, then you probably shouldn't be watching sport. So we'll talk about if we think a decision is wrong, but we would never say it's a referee's fault. If a referee makes one mistake in a game, there's 79 other minutes for the team.
Ryan Hall's fault.
Yeah.
Ryan Hall.
There were 4 penalties on Saturday at Headingley, none in the second half. Chris Kendall will not get the credit for it. But he should, because he contributed to a free-flowing second half. So we don't criticise referees per se.
No. And
the other thing is we don't want coaches to be sacked. No. We've never been on a bandwagon that says, he's got to go. So I'm not saying, and I wouldn't, especially if he's living round here, Sam needs to go. I just think Warrington have a really, really interesting decision as to how they view the remainder of this season. And it will be interesting to know from our avid Warrington friends here what they think.
We're scared of Sam Burgess. That's what we're just missing there.
Well, no, he's got an aura about him. He came in the press conference after the game on Saturday. He didn't say very much, but you knew Sam Burgess was in the room. He was going to say what he wanted, not necessarily what the journalist wanted.
Sam, did you play well?
Yeah. What did you think?
Yeah. The issue at Warrington, if it isn't the players per se, some of the players are better than others. Some they probably shouldn't have signed. But that's opinion. The coach is the coach. Who above all this? Who makes all the decisions?
This leads us into the score of their women's team.
Yeah, it's lovely how they've played Leeds in these 4 games.
I think it's about what do they want to be as a club, and so much focus I think has been put on the men's running team and the pressure of we need to get over 70 years of hurt. That has been to the detriment of building a club. So the team ran out at Headingley on the Sunday wearing the Warrington colours with the Wolves badge and got beaten by in a Super League encounter, not against a promoted team. And the result, if I'm a senior manager at Warrington, is embarrassing. It's the same with the wheelchair team. They were a Super League entity. They're not now. They possibly should be in next year. They're not winning enough games in the divisional to assume that unless they have a complete overhaul of players that they're going to be a force to be reckoned with in anywhere in the near future. I don't know what Warrington want to be and how they see the one club mentality that Wigan have fostered, that Leeds operate, that I think Hull are starting really to get the hang of, which embraces everything about the club, the heritage, everything. I'm just not sure Warrington have got it.
Sheffield.
Sheffield are very good at that.
Leeds.
York.
Leeds Rhinos women 110. Warrington Wolves women 0.
Yeah.
But even more important than that, before in the academy game,
Yeah.
Leeds Rhinos under 19s, is that the academy level?
Yeah.
74.
Yeah.
Warrington 4.
Yeah.
Now
the one thing to bear in mind about that is the amount of time that Leeds have put into developing players, which, yes, their first team may not have got to Wembley this year, may not even make the grand final, but clearly there is a reservoir of talent that they're... Ellie Seal, is it Ellie? Lily Seal. Played full-back for Leeds Academy women last. She was the girl that when we went to Wembley a few years ago was player of the match and got something like 4 tries in the Year 7 game. She played full-back. Yes, they got 5 tries. That's a talent they've nurtured for probably 5 years, 6 years. Now, I don't see Warrington doing it. I'm not going to decry the efforts of any player, women's player that played for Warrington yesterday.
But there's no point. There's no point saying, that's a lot of rubbish.
But they've changed the coach. I don't think they're not one of the clubs that have announced they're even paying expenses, are they? Whatever that might mean. They don't. They tend to play the women's games at Victoria Park. It's not inclusive.
Couldn't find any news on Twitter yesterday about the team. And I know Leeds have got that nonsense thing of posting on some other social media.
Yeah, but
you know.
The other thing about that game, and this isn't just knocking Warrington, is that match was on TalkSport 2. That's a national broadcaster who are broadcasting more women's games than anyone else. They've been a leading light in putting on women's matches, and they're not just covering the top 4 playing each other. I didn't listen to the coverage, obviously, but how embarrassing must that be to go back to the station commander and go, we spent 2 hours broadcasting a game that finished 110-0 between 2 Super League teams. Now, I know that the world football nonsense that's going on at the moment, somebody's just won 10-0 against an amateur team, and that might be sort of comparable, but we have to be better in what we're giving them to broadcast, and Warrington have to be better as a club.
And we know
if they're going to get out of whatever it is they're in.
We're going to have gone from not the clear 4th of 4. I don't think that's fair.
No, they weren't a million miles away, but they were 4th.
But it's taken, I don't know how much it's cost them financially, but it's cost them some money.
Relatively speaking, not a lot.
But yeah, exactly. Sod all.
They've developed young players.
Mm-hmm.
They've bought in some players from Australia because they couldn't find the players here. They've developed a bespoke facility in Orrell, which they were doing anyway, because it's also for Wigan Athletics women. They've won a Challenge Cup on the BBC. All of that investment has been paid back. So why aren't Warrington doing that? And I think that reflects on their men's team as well. That I don't know what it is, but something is awry.
Because
they're not selling out the HJ. No. They're getting about a 9,000 crowd average, and that's not great in a town. It's a town now of 200,000 people. It doesn't have a professional football team like Wakefield. The signature team in Warrington is the rugby league team. I would imagine very few people don't know that team exists and where they play, and they're not getting them all in the ground. I don't know why.
I really don't understand what the hell's going on, says Kevin. The signings are ridiculous. All the injuries we have, and still one of the quota players doesn't get in the 17. That's Dan Russell, who was at the cricket the other day. Apparently.
Which again, a lot of people said when they signed him, is he a good signing?
What's Simon Moran doing, putting up with this? The whole club's going backwards. And he's signing these checks, and I don't know.
I just think too much of the focus, and I don't know Simon. I've never been in his company. I don't know if he is just desperate for that men's team to go to Old Trafford and win, and every board meeting they have is how much nearer are we to doing that, and everything else is secondary. I genuinely don't know, because I haven't asked them, and I don't think they'd tell me if I did.
So let 1955.
Yes.
So up until that point, Leeds had not won the title, had they?
No.
Was it 1970?
61 Leeds
61,
for the
sorry.
first
61,
time.
sorry. Watford have won it twice. Dewsbury have won it. Lee have won it. Bradford and Alden, the original club, hadn't gone bust at that point, but they have now, because that was 64. But everyone forgets that and still continues the history, even though they stopped playing halfway through a season. Warrington have no divine right to be champions, unlike any other club, and it just becomes more and more of a thing. But
the whole "it's always our year" thing is becoming a millstone, and has been for probably about the last 2 or 3 years.
Paul says, get your academy right and keep it at that for 5 or 6 years, and then you have the backbone of a team for 10 years. And Wigan have done that, Leeds have done that, St Helens have done that. Saints are now in that position where they have to refresh that, because the players are getting older.
Leeds are doing it again, I have to say, from watching their reserves, which, say, half the team was academy players. They've got a crop.
But Warrington... Traditionally, we say about Warrington, they bring in players from elsewhere, and they try to build a jigsaw. And I sort of get
that. They haven't got as many clubs as Wigan have, community clubs, so the pool that they're fishing in is smaller. But, I if I'm Warrington, I am signing kids from Wigan, St Pat's, giving them a chance. I am going to Blackbrook in St Helens and signing them. I want to get the best of Parkside Goulburn, obviously. But, they something isn't right in the philosophy behind what they're trying to do, in my opinion, which they'll probably now email and say you can.
The problem is we're being logical.
I'm more interested to know what Warrington fans think, because it's fine sitting 50 miles away and pontificating, but you see them every week, you guys on the chat, and you're passionate about them. So what do you think's missing?
So I'm going to go to this game on Saturday in Edinburgh, where they're playing Leeds, who are the champions of the Wheelchair Super League. And chances are, I don't know how the game's going to go, Leeds are going to win by a big score, because they've got a load of internationals for England. They're the Wales captain. They've just won the league, and they're playing a team who are playing their first ever Super League game.
Who are developing talent.
Baptism of fire. Now, if Edinburgh lose by a big score, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter, because they're developing and this and that and the other, and they're an island up there.
Well, the thing about Edinburgh, because we've done a couple of features on them, is they have a plan. And their plan is not determined by one result. Their plan is, we want to get more people playing the sport, we want to establish Edinburgh as a Super League team, and we realise Martin Gill's their coach, who was coach at Leeds when they came in, and Leeds were getting beat by 100 points every week. We're not really bothered about the results. We're passionate about developing the sport, and by developing the sport properly, Scotland will be better as a nation. We might get a second team in Scotland. Dundee used to have a good wheelchair team. So they know what they're doing, they know who they are, and they're not going to be derailed, even if they lose their first 5 games 100-0. I don't know who Warrington are.
That's the thing. What is Warrington's plan for women's rugby league or wheelchair rugby league or anything?
As a club, or in the town, or...
If it is...
I also don't understand, and we've said this before, I'm going to say it again, I do not understand how, if you're marketing yourself as the Wolves, you refer to yourselves as the Wire. It seems self-defeating to me that and again, we can use 100 analogies, but I'm going to use the one that I know the best. The chant that used to be at Headingley for all of the years I was growing up was the Loiners. We are the Loiners. They have been the Rhinos since 1997, and nobody says Loiners. They bought in. They might still wear the badge. They might still call themselves that amongst themselves, but it's the Rhinos. They are the Rhinos. The brand has worked. The Wolves thing seems to be a halfway house. Are you Wolves or are you Wire? And you might say it's not important and it doesn't affect the performances on the field, but it's about identity, and it does.
Kevin says, who's in charge of recruitment? The whole "it's always our year" was sarcasm, because we're always crap. People think we're serious when we sing it. I mean, the Leeds fans were serious when they were singing it.
But it's come back to bite them, because now every opposition fan is singing it, and it's a millstone.
Saints signed up a lot of players from Crossfields a couple of years ago. That says it all. Wire Academy were unbeaten. That's all. That's good. Robert says, also to be fair, why we're extremely unlucky to lose last week, and their fans were tremendous. They were unlucky. We said last week they were the best team.
They were the better team for 78 minutes.
Unfortunately, they didn't win, and they didn't back it up this week. Sam Burgess talked about it after the game in the press conference. You can go back and watch the video.
Yeah.
About him, this is the Warrington. But that wasn't the Warrington that turned up against Leeds, and that's not taking anything away from Leeds. No. That wasn't the Warrington who Sam Burgess said they were. So what happened in... But I know they had to get over a defeat.
But what are they? That's the thing. I don't recognise a trait at the moment that Warrington exhibit. It's not
as you say, what happens against Huddersfield this week?
It's not like they're difficult to break down on their own line, or they're scoring a lot of points, or... I don't know what they are. I don't know what they're trying to do.
So it's Wire versus Fartown then this week. So that's... But I don't know what you do.
Big game. Big game, because if Warrington lose that game, then their season... in Super League is virtually finished.
So I'll clip this bit out and I'll say, Warrington, why is it all going wrong? Shock or something.
And
put all those buzzwords in that you're supposed to do for the internet. 110 dollars. I mean, as you're saying downstairs, Phil, how do you score 110 points?
It's like even
minutes?
Just 20 tries in 80 minutes. Just the time it takes to touch down, take a conversion, restart. You're virtually scoring on every set, aren't you?
Wigan, the Women's Challenge Cup winners, won 58-0 away at Huddersfield, who didn't play in Dewsbury, but in their YMCA pitch or whatever. Well done to Wigan.
Again, who backed up playing at Wembley. And hopefully a lot of celebrations. With another... The nil is, again... We know who Wigan are. Wigan... last we'll say about Warrington. But there's something called the Wigan Way. And whilst we're not from Wigan, I think we understand what that means. And that's what I mean about having an identity.
Chris says Martin Gill is doing a fantastic job for Wheelchair Rugby League at Edinburgh Giants and Scottish Wheelchair Rugby League. Highly ambitious but humble. Well, I'm looking forward to going on Saturday. It's going to be an adventure. So I'm looking. Well, it is because you're on a 20-seater coach. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Again, it's not. I know what the result's going to be, but it's not about that.
You're going for the experience.